Bonjour, good afternoon, and welcome to WASA Distance Education. My name is Greg Weaver, and this is ENG3C, Grade 11 College Prep English. I'd like to welcome everyone who's listening across North today at home, your learning center, or on Bell Expressview. To call and join our class, you can call 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017 or 2983 in the Sioux Lookout, Lac Seul, or Dryden areas. I'd like to welcome everyone back to class today. This is our second class of the week and our third last class before the March break. Quick reminder that the March break here at WASA is next week. We are closed all next week, Monday to Friday. Additionally, I will be away on Friday. I'm going away on vacation, so I'll be away on Friday as well. Over the March break, there will be no opportunity to contact me if you need help with your course. I will not be assigning any homework other than work that you have yet to complete, and I'd strongly recommend that you continue reading Part 2 in To Kill a Mockingbird. Our plan today is to hopefully get all the way through lesson 1 lesson 11, the first lesson of Unit 3 in To Kill a Mockingbird and Unit 3. If we get that done, we'll look at Unit 2 tomorrow and Thursday, and we'll look at Units 3, lessons 13, 14, and 15 when we come back after March break. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer questions you have and help you out. But please let me know before Thursday. So as soon as our class ends Thursday, I will be out of the office. Any work you want to hand in that you want marked before the March break, please get all of that work handed in no later than tomorrow afternoon. As long as the work is in my mailbox on Thursday morning, I can get it marked. If you hand it on Thursday, I cannot guarantee that it will be finished. And back to you in time. So with that, we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. Now, if you couldn't join us yesterday, we did a quick review of all of the key questions from lesson for Unit 2. We finished off Lesson 10 and reviewed all 5 key questions that you had to do in Lesson 2. Then we started looking at Unit 3, Lesson 11. And we got as far as the support questions in the middle of page 3. Now we're gonna pick up from there, and I had asked you to try and complete the answers to these support questions before we came to class today. If you got a chance to do that, perfect. If you didn't, we're gonna take them up right now. You can always go back and practice them. Say the answers for these questions are at the very back of your unit, and you can find them there. So, our first question is a 5-part question. So it asks you to explain who the following characters were. You have to just summarize who they are, what they did, in one sentence. So you look at Jem, Scout, Atticus, Uncle Jack, and Aunt Maudie. Miss Maudie. So, who is Jem? We're going to take these up now. So, Jem is the main character's older brother, and is also her primary playmate. He's the one that that Scout normally plays as. B. Scout is our main character or protagonist of the novel. She is 6 at the very beginning of the novel. She's just starting the first grade. C is Atticus. Now, Atticus is the father of Scout and Jem. He is a lawyer in Macomb County. D is Uncle Jack. So Uncle Jack is Agnes's brother, and he's also a medical doctor. And E is Miss Mowdy. And she is the Finches. That's all Jem, Scout, Agnes, and Jack. Last name is Finch. She's the Finch's neighbor. She spends all of her time outside tending to her garden, which the children are allowed to play in as long as they keep out of her azaleas. Number 2 says describe the Radley place. Now the Radleys in the first part seem to be this real mysterious family that seem to play the role of antagonist for Scout, Jem, and their friend Dill. Once we get into the second part of the novel, that changes a lot. But for now, that's what it is for the end of part 1. So the Radley house is a very small bungalow or one-story house. All the bedrooms, the rooms, everything is just on one floor. It faces north on the same street as the Finch house. It used to be white, but it needs a fresh coat of paint. In fact, the whole house is run down. It needs new shingles and a new picket fence. The Radleys keep the shutters closed all of the time. Number 3 says, explain why Scout was bothered by the molasses syrup at lunch that Walter Cunningham, and that was when Walter Cunningham put molasses all over his meal or first day of school because he didn't have a lunch, and the new teacher at the school didn't understand that he couldn't afford a lunch. So why was Scout so bothered by that? Well, Scout was bothered by the molasses because Walter poured it on everything, including his vegetables and his meat, which, in her opinion, is wrong. Remember, she's 6 years old, and she's used to having molasses every day, whereas Walter Cunningham was something he probably has very rarely. So number 4 says, why are Jem and Scout so excited about the hole in the tree? Well, they're excited because items keep getting left in it. It's like someone's just giving them presents all the time because it seemed like it's meant for them. They got 2 dolls that looked just like Jem and Scout from it as well. So number 5. So what happens if you eat something from the tree in the Radley place? And this is just what the kids at school say. But according to kids at school, if you eat anything from a tree from the Radley place, you will die because it's poisoned. Now, that's what the kids think. It's not accurate, but that is just some of the superstition, the myth that goes along with the Radleys. So number 6 is what happened to Jem during his adventure to stick a note on the Radley house. And when he was doing that, he was caught by Atticus. And he got told off pretty strong by Atticus about not disturbing the Radleys. Number 7 says, what happened to Jem and his pants after his third adventure at the Radley house? So first he ran, touched the house. They tried to put a note on a stick, and then they snuck in, were trying to look in the windows. So what happens afterwards? Well, Jen Spencer got caught on a fence by the schoolyard. He found them the next day, neatly folded, and they had got caught when Mr. Radley fired a shotgun in the air to try and scare off the intruders, who was actually them. So number 8 says, who filled up the tree hole? So Nathan Radley, the older, the father of Boo Radley, filled it in. Number 9 is, what was Scout's first reaction to snow? So first, Scout, she never seen snow before, so she thought that the world was ending. Now, we may think it's funny that they've never seen snow before, but they live in southern Alabama, which is very far away from us. So in there, it tends to be very warm. If it gets cold, it tends to rain and not snow. So that's why it was such a strange thing for her to see. Number 10. So what did Boo do for Scout during the fire at Miss Mowdy's house? So the house is burning down, and he put a blanket around her without her even noticing. And finally, number 11 says, who will Atticus defend? This started coming out in chapter 10. And I was going to defend Tom Robinson, who is a black man who is accused of raping a white woman. And that's what most of part 2 revolves around, is that trial and what occurs and what happens in that trial. So once again, you can find all the suggested answers to those questions at the very back of the unit. You can find those on page 51. Those are available on page 51. So next we're going to start thinking about some of the characters. Now you've already met a number of characters in the novel. Most of these characters are the main characters. So far, some of the major characters, the main characters you've met, is Scout, who's the narrator, her brother Dill, her father Atticus, her friend whose name is Dill, who comes every summer. Also been her neighbors, Miss Stephanie Crawford, or Miss Mowdy. There's the Radleys. We know that their cook is called Calpurnia. And we met, and that's pretty much all the major characters. We have met other characters. We've met Walter Cunningham. We met the grade 1 teacher. But those are pretty minor characters. They don't tend to play a big role in the novel. There are some characters that we've met that we think are pretty much minor characters, but they take on a much more prominent role and become main characters in the second part of the novel. So, Scout, the narrator of To Kill a Mockingbird, is very young. So as you reflect on the first section of the novel, and later as you read the second and third sections, keep her immaturity and inexperience in mind. We, the reader, can only understand the other characters in the novel through what Harper Lee chooses to tell us. And that's through Scout's narration of the events and her reflections on those events. So, what that means is everything that we are told is through the eyes of, at the beginning of a 6-year-old, but then in the novel, she's 9. So, think of what you were like when you were that young. And think about what you knew and understood and what you didn't understand. So that and those ideas is what the bias is of the narrator, and therefore the author. And this is present in all fictional stories. Now, we talked about bias back in lesson 2 when you wrote your news article on discrimination. So we looked at bias then, but it exists in everything. Everything that you read, everything that you see on the internet. It's not just something for newspapers. So, the bias that Scout shows, and thereby the author, because the author is telling us through her eyes, is very specific. And we'll talk more about that later on. So in terms of the physical characteristics, so Harper Lee, the author, through Scout's narration, does not provide the reader with comprehensive descriptions of the main characters. We don't know what they look like. We know a bit about how they act, but not what they look like. Sometimes she just provides a general comment on the person's appearance and leaves it up to the reader's imagination to fill in the rest of the details. How you fill in those blank details depends on your past personal life and your own personal life experiences. For example, if in your past experience, warm mother people are usually slightly overweight women, that's what you'd think you picture Calpurnian to be. So, if you hear someone saying a motherly figure, you probably think about your own mother. If someone is tall and standoffish, you'll probably think of someone that you know that's tall and standoffish. That is your own personal bias and your own personal knowledge. And that affects how you read the story and what you can take away from it. So, thinking of that, thinking of those personal characteristics, we're going to do another support question. And we'll start this and we'll work through this together. So it says, flip through a few magazines, catalogs, or websites that provide pictures of a variety of people of all ages. For each of the following characters from the novel, locate a picture or two that reminds you of them physically. We have pictures for Scout, Jem, Dill, and Atticus. So when you've located each picture, write down on a separate sheet of paper what physical traits that person has that least specified they should have in the text of the novel. So Carl, you look back and look at the first beginning chapters to see the descriptions of the characters. Those are normally found, especially for these characters, in chapters 1 and 2. Then try to figure out why you chose to fill in the blank details that way you did. That is, if the picture of Atticus you chose has a balding man, why might you have subconsciously imagined that Atticus is balding? What experiences might have influenced your subconscious interpretations? Now, I'm going to walk you through some of the assignment. And the other part you're going to have to do on your own, and we'll take up later tomorrow. We're not going to take a whole lot of time on this, but I'm going to work through at least how to find photos of these characters. And we'll leave the other parts that are under that list. We have to look at outlining what characters that they have and why you chose to fill in the blanks differently. We'll look at that tomorrow, but some of that is very hard to do because it's your own personal experiences and your own personal bias that will help to fill that in as well. Now, one thing I want to remind you of, or let you know if you don't know, there was a movie made of this novel. It was made back in the mid-1960s, but it was made in black and white and not in color film. Now, this is done on purpose. They had color film back then, but they chose to do it on black and white instead. So when you search them, I'm going to go through some searching together. You will see some of those characters pop up. That's one way that some people have imagined them. You can feel free to imagine them completely different. And that is perfectly fine. So we're going to go here to Google, and we're going to fire up our search engine, and we'll see what images we can search for and see what comes up. So we're going to look for Scout Finch. And here we're looking at images. So how has she been imagined? These photos, these black and white photos you see here, is how she has been imagined and what she looked like when the movie came out. All these black and white photos. Some of the other ones are look how they may have been imagined differently. So that option is up to you. But you can search images like that and see what comes up. And we do the same thing for gem. Now, once again, you're going to see images from the movie in the black and white. However, you'll see there's also different things coming up here as well. Remember, at the first beginning of the movie, Jem is 10 years old. So, I think, well, what would do you think a 10-year-old boy would look like? And then we can search here again for Atticus. And you're going to see in this actor looks like this. Is how it was imagined in the movie. Now, this is not how it may initially be described in the book. It's up to you to go back, find the description that's in the novel, and then either change that or try and find images that look like that. And this is what Dill looked like in the novel. Remember, Dill is 8 years old, is very short. Now, other options, as you can just Google, because you know Scout is 6 when the movie starts. You can Google 6-year-old girl, and you can see what pops up. If you want to, you can search for 10-year-old boy and see what comes up there. And those images, let's see, 10-year-old boy, sorry. And that can come up and see what comes up there. So that is something to think about, and how you can find different images that go along with this assignment. Now, this is a support question, and you don't have to hand it in. You don't even have to complete it, but it will help you when we get into key question 12, which we'll be looking at later on. So we're going to jump back into our unit here, and we're going to try and get through the rest of lesson 11 today. So we're going to try and get to all the way to the end of it, and then we can hopefully start with lesson 12 tomorrow. So we're going to look at personality characteristics. So it says each character's personality is developed through a number of different techniques. Their personality or character traits can be shown through what they do, what they say, and how they say it, what others say about them, and what they hope and dream about. And we'll go and explain all of those and what they mean. So in terms of what they do, a person's actions help to reveal what type of person he or she is. For example, a person who usually holds open the door for the next person is typically a polite, conscientious person. Conversely, A person who speeds up and cuts off another driver to be the first one to a drive-through is usually a rude, self-centered person. Now, these are generalizations, as is all character analysis. But you can use stereotypes to make your analysis easier. In many ways, all characters in literature are stereotypes, whether the author intends to make them that way or not. But now you should know what a stereotype is. If you don't, let me know, and I can always go with you over the phone or over a Bridget session in my office. Next, we got what they say and how they say it. And when we look at that, a person's words can also show his or her personality. A toddler who says no all the time is showing that he or she is stubborn. An adult who often comments, "I can't," is pessimistic or lazy, depending on when they say that in that situation. It's not just what a person says that shows their personality. The specific words that he or she uses also shows characterization. For example, if a person says, "How do you do? It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance," that person's usually very formal and stiff in nature. On the other hand, a person who greets others by saying, "Hey, how you doing?" is showing through a program that she's a relaxed, easygoing person. Next is what others say about them. Now, this is a more difficult characterization technique to use as an author and to analyze as a reader. Subconsciously, however, readers are affected by one character's assessment of another character. For example, if a character is constantly being called a jerk, chances are that you, the reader, will begin to view him that way, even if you have not been given any other evidence that a person is mean to others. That's how it impacts you with your perception. That's how the author can, using word choice and the words from the novel and the other characters, can shape what you think and how you think about a character before you may have even really had a chance to get to meet them in the novel. That happens a lot with fairy tales. When someone's called the wicked witch, well, you don't know that. It's just that's what it could be. But because they're described that way, it is how it comes across. And then lastly, what do they hope and dream about? Now, what this is a more difficult technique. The idea here is that a character who hopes for a boyfriend to love and take care of is probably a very caring, maternal person, even if we do not actually see her interacting with others in that way. So that is looking at personality characteristics, or ways you can use to describe someone. On the next page, you're going to see a big list of character traits. And this is different words people use to describe personality. In the descriptions above, you can find some of these traits. For example, some descriptions use the terms uh, polite, conscientious, rude, self-centered, stubborn, pessimistic, lazy, formal, stiff, relaxed, easygoing, caring, and maternal. There are many more character traits that exist, however. The list below provides a more comprehensive collection of those traits. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is for many of these terms, the opposite also applies. For example, happy as well as unhappy, like caring versus uncaring, friendly versus as introverted. These words are known as antonyms or opposites. So there's a big list. I'll read through them. I'm not going to explain them unless there's some that I don't that in the past you have a hard time understanding, and I don't think you may know. But we're going to go read from left to right to go across. So we have affectionate, argumentative, aloof, which is kind of another word for distant or not engaging in anything. Clever, arrogant, assertive, clumsy, audacious, or very bold, cheerful, compelling, boring, childish, conniving, or kind of like scheming, brash, confident, creative, conservative, content, dominating, cruel, courageous, easygoing, eccentric, or kind of different or weird, egotistical or arrogant, another word there, erratic, evil, frugal or cheap, frivolous, extroverted or outgoing, funny, gentle, heroic, hardworking, gracious, homely, or homely is very plain, indecisive, greedy, intelligent, jealous, honorable, introverted, logical, hurtful, mature, notorious, or famous in a bad way, ignorant, mysterious, obnoxious, inconsistent, optimistic, patient, narrow-minded, perceptive, reliable, persistent, possessive, romantic, persuasive, pragmatic, and rude, powerful, proud, sarcastic, practical, quiet, sardonic, self-conscious, responsible, scrupulous, another for very honorable, self-righteous, sophisticated, shy, spontaneous, stubborn, snobbish, superficial, talkative, thoughtful, unrefined, tenacious, or very stubborn, thoughtless, virtuous, tolerant, and untrustworthy. So all those are different words that describe different character traits. And that leads us into another support question. And this one we'll go through pretty quickly because I want to try and get to key question 12 for the end of the class. So it says, examine the attached list of character traits. We just looked at that. On a separate sheet of paper, list 4 words which you are not familiar or cannot define without assistance. Using a dictionary, write a definition for each word to the right of the word itself. Now, as you go through the list of character traits one word at a time, write down a trait that describes you as a person. Or if you want to, you can just put a little star beside it because you don't hit this. You keep this unit once you're done, so feel free to mark it up. So you can put a little star beside any traits that you see there. And then, so you want to try to get those words down into if you do write down point in a single column, you start them, just leave it as is. Go through traits one last time. Write down any trait that describes Scout's personalities combined to develop the first section of the novel. Create a second column that describes you, the person. Closely examine the traits that you've listed in 2 columns, a separate piece of paper. Create a chart like the one below. Fill in each column by listing the appropriate traits. So, think of traits of all that whole list that apply to both you and Scout combined, as well as what those apply just to you, and what do you think apply just to Scout? This activity is designed just to help you think about what works with what, and how different traits can be similar among characters, as well as different. Now, if we had a bit more time, we would go through this as an example, but we don't really have. We only have about 6 minutes left in class, so I want to get through this. So, if you want to work on this, you can. There is no suggested answers at the back of the unit because this is very personal. It's very subjective. So you want to keep that in mind. And so we'll move on. Keep moving on. We had what's called a quotation insertion. Now this is kind of more of a research task, but it's important to know because you're going to need it for our next key question. So it says, one of the best ways to prove your point, whether you're writing an argument, whether you're doing an opinion piece, information, any kind of writing, is to use the author's own words to back up your ideas. There is a specific format to do this. Remember that if you do not follow these steps and you use someone else's ideas, you can be accused of plagiarism. Which is a major academic crime and get you in a lot of trouble depending on when you do it. Always be sure to follow the following steps if you borrow someone else's ideas or words. First, you want to locate the information in your source, in this case, in the novel To Kill a Mockingbird. Identify whether your quote is being spoken by a character as dialogue. For example, Jim replied, "It's just I can't think when they can come out without them getting us." Or as a description or narrative. Jim threw open the gate and sped to the side of the house, slapped with his palm, and ran back past us, not waiting to see if his foray was successful. So decide it's a quote or it's describing what happened. Write down the following information for your quote. What you're trying to prove with your quote is Jim is not as courageous as he wants us to pretend to be. 2 is what else was going on in the book at that time. So Dylan Scout dare Jen to go up and touch the Radley house. Think about who says it. Is it Jem or it's the narrator? If it's just being described, then it's the narrator speaking, which is Scout. What is the quote itself? So write out what page do you find that on? And think about how does your quote prove your point? Or how does it specific quote prove that Jem is not as brave as he pretends to be? Then you want to write your quote insertion and send it in the above order. So we one for a quote and one for a narrative. So the dialogue, or the quote, says, Jem is not as brave as he pretends to be. When Scout and Dill dare him to go to the Radley house and touch it, Jem says, don't blame me when he gouges your eyes out. 2. You started it, remember. Jem pretends he's only worried about Boo getting Dill and Scout, rather than being afraid of what's going to happen to him. This statement, though, is obviously a mask for how Jem really feels at the time. He's trying to convince Dill and Scout that it's too dangerous for them, so that they will try to convince him not to approach the house. So that's one with using a quote. Using narrative, we had no Jem is not as brave as he pretends to be. When Scout and Dale dare him to go up the Radley house and touch it, Darren describes Jem threw open the gate and sped to the side of the house, slapped it with his palm, and ran back to us, not waiting to see if his foray was successful. That's from Lee 14. That's page 14 of the novel. Jem is so terrified by his actions that he does not even try to discover he actually got Boo's attention. Instead, he races off to safety, proving that though he may have tried to pretend that he was not worried, he was truly frightened by the dare that he was given. Now, one thing to keep in mind, that each element of the quote follows as a previous element. Don't start a new line for each piece of information. As well, make sure you're writing in sentence form. It should just be one paragraph. When you do a quote insertion. And so with that in mind, we get to key question 12. And we're going to read this over today, and then we'll come back and we'll work through it a bit more tomorrow. So this is you have two choices with this for part A. Number one says if you have multiple traits in common with Scout, when you did your character analysis support question, we just did, then write a 200-word response journal examining how you and Scout are similar. Or if you don't have any traits in common with Scout, then write 200 words examining how you and Scout are different. You should also examine one critical similarity between your personalities as well. Even requires going back over the list of traits one more time to find a similarity. Now, response journals will be evaluated based on their depth of critical thought, so make sure you don't have just a similarity. Scout and I are both smart and energetic. Be thoughtful. Scout and I are both smart, but neither one of us likes to show it at school because he didn't trust the reactions of our friends. We have street smarts, though, and that's for 10 marks. So do either one or the other. Number 2 says write an expository paragraph explaining to your audience what kind of person Scout is. To accomplish this, follow the steps below. Choose a character that describes Scout. For each character trait, locate a quote in the first section. During the quote does not have to be a person speaking. Write a proper quote insertion. And it's how it demonstrates this trait. And we'll end there. We'll pick up this up again tomorrow. We'll finish off lesson 11. And we'll get right into lesson 12. If you do have any questions, be sure to let me know. Other than that, everyone has a good day and a good night. And I'll talk to everyone again tomorrow. Till then, miigwech, and bye for now.